Welcome to the Wind Up with Will. I'm your host, Will, and today we're going to talk about the Rugby World Cup final, the last video of the Rugby World Cup. I know y'all are probably tired of hearing about it. We're going to talk about the World Series and the Texas Rangers winning that, and we're going to talk about the current state of the NFL, some current games that are going on, certain players moving around, all that fun stuff. I'm going to start off with the Rugby World Cup since that's the one I'll probably talk about the least in this episode, and just go ahead and get it out of the way. I know I've been talking about it for weeks on end now. As the Rugby World Cup final was last weekend, it was last Saturday. And it was between two heavyweight teams, New Zealand and South Africa. Both were tied with three Rugby World Cup final titles. Rugby World Cup titles. For the most all time. Both of them had three. New Zealand has dominated the sport for over 100 years. South Africa has really been a powerhouse since the mid 90s. I'm assuming they were a good team before then, but since they were allowed to kind of come back into the international rugby after apartheid ended in the 90s, they've been a powerhouse as well. And so that was last Saturday. Super exciting game. I watched it. I was expecting kind of New Zealand to come out of it and just kind of be like Alabama of rugby, like they're just going to be destined to win it again. But they actually lost. South Africa won with a score 12-11. Super low scoring game. That's just how South Africa wins all of its Rugby World Cup titles. They just kick more penalty point, kick more penalties and drop goals than the other team. Like they just get all of their points off of kicking. Like they don't have to score tries to win. New Zealand did not play well in that game as well. They had a lot of errors on the field, a lot of turnovers on throw-ins from balls that are out of bounds, throwing them back into play. They turned that over a bunch. They had some kicking mistakes. They conceded penalties. They scored a try late in the game. Actually, they was at the time South Africa was ahead 12-6, so they're ahead 6 points. New Zealand scores a try, which is the rugby equivalent to a touchdown. They score a try, it gets them 5 points, so now they're behind 12-11. They're getting to kick the conversion, which in rugby is 2 points. So if they get the conversion through, they're ahead by 1 point, 13-12. But they miss the conversion. And then they miss a penalty kick as well that would have given them 3 points. So they left like 5 points out there on the field that would have given them the lead. And then they get the ball back at the very end of the game and try and drive the full length of the field to score at the end, which very hardly ever works because you're just out of time, you're rushing, and you end up committing a penalty, which turns it over, game ends. And that's what happened. South Africa now has the most Rugby World Cup titles with 4. They defended their championship. They won it 4 years ago. They won it again this year. They have established themselves as the kings of rugby until New Zealand or someone else can overtake them. But it was super exciting to see. Great matchup. I'm excited to see the next Rugby World Cup in 4 years, and you won't have to hear me talk about it until then again. Okay, going on to baseball now. The World Series was this past week, and it actually went pretty fast. Ended in 5 games. It started last Friday night, October 27th, and Game 1 was between the Rangers and Diamondbacks. The Rangers won 6-5 in 11 innings. Super exciting game to watch, especially the ending. The Diamondbacks led most of the game, and then in the ninth inning, Corey Seager hits a 2-run home run to tie it, 5-5, in the bottom of the ninth inning. And then Garcia hits a walk-off opposite field home run to win it. And it was the 12-year anniversary of the Rangers losing Game 6 to the Cardinals in walk-off fashion by the heroics of David Freese. So it was very fitting of them to win that game that night and go up 1-0 in the series. And then the very next night, Saturday night, the Diamondbacks won 9-1 over the Rangers. They throttled them behind stellar performance by Morrell Kelly. It did a great performance pitching wise. Jordan Montgomery pitched okay for the Rangers, but he gave up quite a few hits and 4 runs. So the series was tied 1-1 after then, going to Arizona for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. The Rangers won game 3, 3-1 on the pitching of Max Scherzer, who only pitched 3 innings, but pitched okay through those 3 innings. The Diamondbacks had Brad Fat. I don't know how to say his name. I have to learn how to say his name. Who pitched okay, but gave up the 3 runs. Game 4 Tuesday night, the Rangers throttled the Diamondbacks that game. They were ahead at one point 10-0 through 3 innings. They rolled them over. The Diamondbacks did make a late comeback to just lose 11-7, but it wasn't enough. They're behind 3-1 now. They're hoping they got to hope to extend the series. But in Game 5 on Wednesday night, the Rangers won 5-0 to win their first ever World Series title. And Corey Seager was named World Series MVP. He played phenomenal in that series. Had several home runs. Actually, I'm going to pull up his stats real quick that he had in this series, if I can get them up. But it kind of looked like the Rangers might have trouble when Adolis Garcia went out with an injury. Max Scherzer looked like he was having an injury when he left early in the game. That was game 3, I believe, at the Diamondbacks when he came out. So it looked like the Rangers might have some issues on their hands of, hey, they've got some of their better players injured, but they held on. They ended up winning to clinch their first ever World Series title. And then the World Series parade that they had the other day, it was estimated that they had 500,000 to 700,000 people come out to see the parade, which is pretty cool. Texas deserves a championship. The Rangers deserve a championship after everything they've been through, after losing back-to-back World Series in 2010 and 2011. This is an organization that really wanted to win one, and I'm happy to see some former Mets win the World Series since I'm a Mets fan. With Jacob deGrom, very deserving of a World Series, even though he didn't get to pitch the second half of the season or the postseason. I'm happy to see him get a ring. I love that guy. Max Scherzer, even though he maybe didn't have the best career with the Mets, happy to see him win again. And Travis Jankowski, great baseball player, great guy. Loved him on the Mets. Happy to see him win a ring as well. But this was this was this was an exciting series to watch, especially like if you didn't want to see the Astros or Phillies win it after they just played the World Series last year. But it was actually one of the least watched World Series ever. And I think that's partly to do with these aren't super established teams. I mean, the Rangers have been around for super long. They've been around since the 60s when they were initially in Washington, and the late 60s, I believe, is when they moved to Texas. Might have been the early 70s. And became the Texas Rangers. So, but they're not normally a baseball powerhouse. They didn't really become relevant till the 90s, and then through the 2000s, and that stretch under Ron Washington as their manager, where they made the playoffs every year and then made back-to-back World Series appearances. But they're not the Yankees. They're not the Phillies. They're not the Braves. They're not the Dodgers. They're not this powerhouse team that's always in the playoffs, always has a chance to win it. But after the moves they've made the past couple years, people knew that this was coming, that this team is going to be good. With getting Corey Seager and Marcus Semien to two great players up the middle, playing second and short. Phenomenal infield there. They've got great young talent, players like Josh Young, Jonah Heim. And then they went out and got pitching. They went and got Nathan Eovaldi. They traded for Jordan Montgomery at the trade deadline. They went and traded for Max Scherzer. They signed Jacob deGrom in the offseason. They went out and made moves. They traded for Aroldis Chapman. They went out and made moves to make their team better. They just had the right mix of young guys, veterans, trades, off-season signings that made them the team that they are and allowed them to compete and win it. And they really persevered through it, because after choking down the stretch, I think they lost like 14 of their last 16 games to choke the division away to the Astros. They come back and beat the Astros in the ALCS, which is ironic and redeeming. But when they choke the division away down the stretch, I thought this team is not going to go far in the postseason. If they might win in the first round and then get knocked out in the division series. But I didn't think that they were going to go far just because they just choked. That's weighing on their minds. That's not going to carry well into the postseason. But I was wrong. They persevered, and that just shows what a great team that they are. And the Diamondbacks are a team that's only been around since '97, so they have very little history. But they did win the World Series in 2001. They were the fastest team to ever win the World Series after coming into an existence from expansion. So that I think that's part of the reason that this World Series wasn't well watched. The Diamondbacks aren't this very historical, traditional team. The Rangers haven't had a ton of success overall. So and you don't have these super large markets of New York or Philadelphia or Los Angeles or Boston in the World Series. And you don't have all this great history and tradition of these powerhouse teams playing. So I think that's why it was a less watched World Series. And but it was a fun World Series to follow and to watch. Two teams that have had some woes over the past few seasons. The Diamondbacks have an exciting future ahead of them with players like Corbin Carroll and Zach Gallen, and the Rangers look like that they're primed to possibly compete again for next year to win it with the pitching that they have, with the lineup that they have. They are a really good team, and they're gonna be looking to get back there. The Diamondbacks are going to be looking to add to their team to put them in a better position to get back here. So it was a fun MLB season, and started all the way back in the spring with the World Baseball Classic, all the way through the season up through the World Series. It's been fun following baseball. I can't wait for the next MLB season. It's only like 140 days away. Let the countdown begin. So I'm excited for what next season holds in MLB. Hopefully my Mets can be better this following year. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the NFL. So I can get the NFL pulled up here. Okay. So last weekend, as some of you might know, the Titans decided to start Will Levis. Not Will Lewis, not me. Will Levis. Very similar name. I'm going to have to get his jersey. Former quarterback at UK. He is now the starter for the Tennessee Titans. Ryan Tannehill had an ankle injury. He started, and Will Levis started in his place on Sunday for the Titans. And I was at the game. It was phenomenal. He balled out. 4 touchdowns, 3 of them to DeAndre Hopkins, almost all of them deep balls. This guy can just throw the ball down the field. He's got a strong arm. He looked almost like a veteran. He quickly threw the ball away when he needed to. He didn't take sacks. He didn't turn the ball over. He did almost everything perfectly, and that's what the Titans needed at offense. And they've been missing that deep threat long ball for a while now, especially since A.J. Brown has not been there the last 2 years. That's really hurt the passing game because when he was there, Tannehill could throw it down. Oh well, A.J. Brown's down there somewhere, and just throw it downfield to Brown, and that really opened up the run game as well because they have to respect A.J. Brown down the field, and then that opens up other wide receivers in downfield, and it opens up the run game. Well, the last 2 years, the Tannehill's not been healthy, and pass game has not been that great. The wide receiving core, because we don't have A.J. Brown anymore, isn't that great. So the teams put 7 guys in the box to stop Derrick Henry. And last year he still rushed for over 1,000 yards. It was only 200 yards behind Nick Chubb for the rushing title, with a horrible offensive line and teams putting 7 guys in the box against him every snap he was in, basically daring the Titans to throw the ball. Well, now teams have to respect the ability for them to pass it, and they can't just put 7 in the box to stop Henry. They've got to spread them out a little more to try and prevent Will Levis from throwing it down the field. It opens up the run game for Henry. So I think this is much needed for the Titans, and me, my dad, and brother all looked at one another at the game on last Sunday, and were like, Titans have found their quarterback. This is the guy. He can throw the ball. He looked very impressive. One of the best performances I've seen at quarterback in a long time for the Titans. He joins an elite company. He's one of, I believe, 3 players of all time in the NFL to start his career with a 4 touchdown game. And the second since Marcus Mariota. Also the Titans. He also wore number 8 with the Titans. So it's an interest. It's a nice little piece of history there. But it was also throwback slash alumni weekend for the Titans. So they wore their baby blue Oilers uniforms, and they had gave they you could buy these hats a little cheaper at the game. So I got me one of these hats. Nice looking with the Oilers look. They also honored a bunch of former Oilers players and Titans players from back in the day and coaches as well. It was just a fun atmosphere and great to be a part of and be there and to see Will Levis perform. The Titans have found their quarterback. He's the one, and they were there was talk of switching him and Malik Willis between some plays, and they even did that in the game. But the very first they got in the first down, they put Willis in, and it's not really his fault, but the center snaps the ball over his head. Levis doesn't fall on it. It's a turnover. I'm sorry. Malik Willis does not fall on the ball. It's a turnover, and Falcons go on to score. I think they just kicked a field goal, if I remember correctly. And then a few drives later, the Titans are about to score, and they put Levis in, and the crowd or they put Malik Willis in, and the crowd just completely booed. And it's not that they were booing Willis; it's just that they wanted Will Levis on the field. It's gonna be so confusing saying their names. Names are so similar. So after that point, and they didn't. I think it was a loss of a couple of yards on that play. After that, they left Will Levis in the rest of the game, which was the right decision. He's the better quarterback. And then Thursday night against the Steelers, Levis started and played fairly well. Had 200 plus yards again. He didn't get a touchdown. He did have one interception. But the Steelers have a good defense. The Titans don't have a good offensive line. And the Titans defense did not hold up there at the end. At the end of the game, the Steelers had the ball on their own 8 yard line and drove the length of the field to score a touchdown. That's not really on Levis. That's a little more on the defense there. And then Levis drove them down the field, had a chance, but you have very little time left in the game, no timeouts. You got to take chances, and that's when the pick comes. That's going to happen, especially with a rookie quarterback. But he looks poised to be a great quarterback for the Titans, and I'm interested to see how he plays the rest of the season. Also, last weekend, Kirk Cousins of the Vikings tore his Achilles. He's out for the season, and the Vikings were probably not going to be a playoff team anyway. I know they got back to 500, but I believe they were at 500. Let me pull up the standings. Yeah, they got back to 500 at 4-4, and he tore his Achilles in that game. So he's out for the season, and the Vikings need a quarterback. So there was talk of them possibly trading for Ryan Tannehill from the Titans, as it's looking, even though he still has his ankle injury, it looks like Titans are probably be rolling with Will Levis once Tannehill is able to come back. More than likely, they're rolling with Levis after he's played his first 2 games. How amazing he's played his first 2 games. Um, but the Vikings ended up traded for Joshua Dobbs from the Cardinals, he was starter for the Titans last game of the year last year. So he's a capable quarterback. He's actually played well for the Cardinals this year, and that's a move that the Vikings needed to make. They needed a quarterback. They went out and traded for one if they wanted any hopes of being competitive the rest of this season. And today, the Dolphin. Wait, I skipped ahead a week. There we go. Yeah. Today, the Dolphins and the Chiefs played in Frankfurt, Germany. The Chiefs won 21-14. Um, Currently, the other games at the moment. Thursday night game, Steelers won 20-16 over the Titans. It's a close game, fun. Unfortunate that my Oilers/Titans didn't come out in that game. The other games, the Patriots are ahead of Washington 14-10 at half. Packers are ahead of the Rams 7-3 at half. Falcons are ahead of the Vikings 11-10 at half. Saints and Bears are 14 all at half. Bucks are ahead of the Texans 17-10 at half. Browns are ahead of the Cardinals 13-0 at half. And the Ravens are beating the Seahawks 17-3 at half. Man, every single game is at halftime. Usually there's like one that's like lingering behind or one that starts back. I guess they're all like on the exact same time. But the afternoon slate of games, we've got the Cowboys and Eagles, which I'm super excited to watch, as also being a Cowboys fan, not just a Titans fan, but a Cowboys fan as well. I'm super excited to watch them take on the Eagles. The Eagles are favored by 3. But if the Cowboys win, we will take first place back from the Eagles. I'm excited for that. The other games are the Colts and Panthers, the Giants and Raiders, two teams that have not played well. And then the Bills Bengals is the Sunday night game. That's going to be an exciting game to watch between Josh Allen and Joe Burrow, two of the best quarterbacks in the league. But for the rest of this season, I guess I'll mention what I expect the rest of the season. I kind of think the Titans with Levis are going to be better than they have been with Tannehill, just because he offers the deep, as I said before, he offers that deep pass down the field, can open up the run game a bit for Henry. So I think the Titans are going to be competitive in at least most of their games, and they'll get back into perhaps contention. I don't think that they're going to really contend for the division because the Jaguars are 6-2, unless injuries or the Jaguars just hit a really cold slate. Now the Titans do play the Jaguars twice. If they can win both those games, perhaps they can get back in it that way. But right now, the Titans are in last place behind the Colts and the Texans. But I think this division outside the Jaguars is pretty open. I mean, Jaguars are ahead in the division they've got 6 wins, 2 losses, and everyone else is under 500. But I don't think the division is quite as bad as people have made it out to be. How they're like, oh, this is the worst division in football. I think there's a lot of potential in this division. I think the teams are all fairly even. I think the Jaguars are slightly ahead. I think they've got the better, more experienced quarterback. They've got a good coach and they've got a good offense and a good defense. They are a good team. They're just a solid team. But I think the other teams can get back in it. I don't know. Kind of feel like the Titans maybe have a better chance than the other teams. We have a more experienced coach who's led teams to playoffs before, and we've got a great running back, and we've got a good defensive front. Our secondary needs improvement. The Texans have a rookie quarterback. They just like the Titans, so I think they can be competitive. I think the Colts are the team that I'm still down on. Anthony Richardson going out hurts them, but Gardner Minshew's an underrated quarterback, so he's very capable of performing. And I think all these teams are pretty even. So, but the Jaguars clearly have the advantage at the moment, having 6 wins to 2 losses. So unless some injuries go against them, I think they're going to end up winning the division, and it's going to be up to the other 3 teams to maybe compete for a wild card in some way. It'll be interesting to see though. All 3 of those other teams have their work cut out to get back in the playoff hunt. Something else I wanted to briefly mention is since the Titans have worn the Oilers throwbacks and everything to do with that, there's been some backlash on social media from certain fans that are like, yeah, the Titans shouldn't get to wear the Oilers uniforms, that should be the Texans or whatever. The only thing I'm going to say on that, well, I'm probably saying more than I should, but um, Titans and Oilers are the same franchise. They were the Houston Oilers. They moved to Tennessee. They had the name the Tennessee Oilers, and then they changed their name to the Tennessee Titans. They're the same franchise. That's why they have Warren Moon's name in the Ring of Honor. It's why they had Warren Moon as the guest of honor at the game last Sunday. It's why they brought all these Oilers players back to the game. And why these players have embraced the Titans, because it's the same team and franchise. Yes, it's unfortunate that Houston lost its original team and the name, and that these uniforms are basically just throwbacks now and not an everyday uniform. It's unfortunate that happened, but this has happened in every sport in some way or form. The Yankees were originally in Baltimore as the Baltimore Orioles at one point. And I'm not joking. You can look that up. Um, the Chiefs were once in Dallas as the Dallas Texans. The Arizona Cardinals were once in Chicago as the Chicago Cardinals. Teams move and change their name. That doesn't mean that they were no longer that team. It's the same franchise. It's like if a business were to be in New York City and one day they're like, well, we don't want to be in New York City anymore. We want to move to Ohio. And they slightly change the name or whatever. It's still the same business. They just changed their location and slightly changed their name. And that's how it works in sports too. For the most part, there's a few notable exceptions, and maybe I'll do a video on teams relocating one day. But the Titans and Oilers are the same franchise. There's nothing wrong with them wearing the throwbacks. It is part of their team history. It's who they are. It's who they were. It's who they are. It's their team. The Texans were an expansion team in 2002, put in Houston to replace the Titans that left. If they ever put an expansion team in St. Louis, I don't expect them to be called the Rams. It's stupid. And the Rams are another team that's relocated a lot. They were originally in Cleveland as the Cleveland Rams, and then they were in Los Angeles as the Los Angeles Rams, and then they moved to St. Louis and became the St. Louis Rams, and then they moved back to Los Angeles and became the Los Angeles Rams. Teams move around, and some of them change their mascot name, some of them don't. So I think it's a little silly to say that the Titans. I'm not. It's not a little. It's just silly. It's silly and stupid to say that the Titans are not the Oilers and that they shouldn't get to wear the Oilers throwbacks. They're the same franchise. The Texans were never the Oilers. They're a completely different team, completely new team. It's the like we don't hold this standard on any team, but it's because of the Titans. The Titans are hated by the media for some reason, and fans act like that they're like the most unknown team. And in some ways they are because the media hates the Titans. They hate us. They never talk about us. And if they do, it's well, they're not any good. All they've got is Derrick Henry. Um, but yeah, that's something I've seen a lot of people saying that they shouldn't get to wear the Oilers throwbacks, and that's to me that's weird. They're the same team. They're the same team. The Texans shouldn't get to wear the Oilers throwbacks because they were never the Oilers. They didn't exist. They're a new team. And even I remember back in the day, you had some Houston Texans players wearing Oilers jerseys going in before the game, like how like you get off the bus and you walk in, they'd be wearing like the Oilers jerseys. And I remember being like, this is so stupid. Like they're literally wearing the jersey of a team that is their rival, the Titans. Like people are people are just so ignorant. Um, but hey, they can wear what they want to wear. If they want to support the Titans while they're playing for the Texans, that's up to them. But that's all I've got for this video. I know I've been saying it for a while. I'm going to get my NHL and NBA season prediction videos out. Maybe I'll make one of those tonight. If not, hopefully I can make it in the next few days. I know we're a few weeks into those league seasons, but I want to get a video out talking about how I think those seasons are going to go for those respective sports. That's all I got for this video. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, whether the Titans are the Oilers and should be allowed to wear the Oilers uniforms or shouldn't. Let me know what you thought about the World Series, Rugby World Cup, what you think about this college football season. Give me your thoughts down in the comments below. What videos do you want to see in the future? What do you want to see me talk about more? I'll see you all in the next video. Adios.